Oh, I have to unmute. Yay, there it is. What's up? How's it going? Oh, I figured as long as I was here, I might as well unbox this new radio on stream, the Jumper T15 Pro that they sent me. Thank you, Jumper. Oh. Ooh, I always spill the screen protector off. Is there more plastic? No, it's just shiny. The Jumper makes a good-looking radio, I'll tell you that. Woo! Yeah. Jumper T15 Pro. Okay. Yeah. Fancy. Check that. Is there batteries already? What the? Oh, it's got a stand on the back. That's slick, I guess. That's kind of... You can take it off if you don't like it. That's kind of... I might like that to be, like, less pointy. You know, but... Yeah, that's clever. Turn that knob. Oh. Does this light up? Feels like it might. See, you can't... Yeah. How often are you going to get at the battery tray, though, really? Right? Oh. Dare I? Oh. Got a little tray in here. That's cool. I guess it's not big enough for the Radio Master 5200 milliamp hour pack. I'd have to get some 21700s. Nice that they use 21700s instead of 18650s. A little more life. I don't think I have a 21700 handy. plastic, fake rubber, fake leather. Yeah, I'd rather do fabric, frankly. JR Bay, very nice. Can't turn it on because... yeah. Yeah, well, we'll be doing a review of that pretty soon. What the hell are these? These for more switches?
What is the, what's the general feel there? Heavy, light, plasticky, sturdy?
That's hard to say. That's hard to say. Tell you what, let's do. Hang on. Let's, let me like, side by side it with the TX15 from Radio Master, which is a semi-comparable radio, if not exactly comparable. Does it have battery in it? I don't think it does. Okay, so much bigger battery compartment. You're going to get a much bigger battery in the Radio Master. That's something. But as far as the weight comparison goes, it's comparable. And neither has a battery. It's similar. It's similar. Like, how much can you tell just from, you know, holding it in your hands? I wouldn't say it feels like cheap or plasticky. I will say that it's a very different vibe. You know, like the plastic pieces here and the layout. Radio Master has a little bit more of, I would say, like a refined feel. A refined vibe, if you will. Whereas the Jumper... I mean, like, for example, the Jumper, we've got these grips here are a fake leather, right? And I think they must come off, right? That's how you, do they come off? I'm not going to, like, break it. Maybe they don't come off. And this here, like, this fake leather here, I'm not, like, I think it brings the whole thing down. You know, here we've got rubber, but it's like, okay, I'm rubber. I'm not trying to be anything I'm not, you know. Has a kind of sincerity. Yeah, it feels a little bit less refined, but I wouldn't say it feels like cheap. Does that make sense? If this is BS right here. Jumper has done this for a long time. Of course, I'm gonna like give one compliment and then immediately start complaining, which is how I review product. Jumper started this a little while back, where they would, instead of having the menu, sys, return, page buttons, they would have a 4-way rocker. And like, you know, one of these is I don't know for a fact how this radio works, but like every Edge TX radio has menu, sys, page, etc., right? They got the same, like, 4 buttons. There's, like, 2 sets of buttons a radio can have. But basically, it's always the same button. So they haven't, like, reinvented the wheel here. And so basically the way this works is that one of these is menu, one is sys, one is page, or one is tele, or whatever it is. And they put them in a 4-way here, which implies some directionality. But, like maybe, you know, menu, sys, page forward, page back sort of makes sense. But, like, you know what else makes sense? That makes sense. Right? I don't know. Oh, there's a center button as well. You could make an argument that, like, you could design this, like, to be directional. You could use this as directional while doubling as menu buttons, but I don't know. That always kind of bugs me. Like, same thing here. Like, what are we doing here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Except we got these two down here for, like, why? Why are these two down here and they're not, like, in a row? I don't know. Well, okay, I'm going to make this one a toggle and these two exclusive. The grouping makes sense, I guess. Trims here. The trims are slippery. If I were going to use them as trims, it would be a little annoying. I really do like when... Now, they're two-way. So it's up, down, left, right. It feels slippery on my finger. I don't have a great grip on it. And a lot of times when you're using trim switches, you'll kind of be flying and you'll kind of reach over and trim. It's gonna work fine. Oh, sorry about my fingernails. People are gonna complain. Oh, gross. Clean your fingers. Anyway, yeah. We'll have to see the price. Anyway, I literally just unboxed it, so, like, how much am I going to say about it? As long as I'm in the top-down camera, I also would like to share with you guys, do a little watch check. My wife got me this for Christmas, and it only just came. And I want to just say, I have an awesome wife. She picked this out. This is from a guy. He's a guy on the internet. His website is Seiko Dials. He makes these custom dials for Seiko mod watches, and then he puts them in cases. And it's a beautiful, beautiful dial. And I just want to share it with you guys. Let you know my wife got it for me for Christmas, and tell her, you know, I love her, and thank you so much for this wonderful. Here, we'll clean it up a little. You know, internally it's a Seiko NH35 movement. Nothing fancy, but the dial is really the strong point. And it's a beauty. It's a beautiful little watch, and I thought I'd wear it on the stream today. It just came. It was late coming. She placed the order like in late October of last year, and then in hopes of getting it by Christmas, and then he was completely incommunicado. No communication. Apparently he just gets overwhelmed and like spaces out every now and then. Okay, didn't need that. Sorry about that, guys. And then, you know, eventually, after months of him not replying to her messages, I filed a chargeback on my credit card, and he immediately reached out. Funny how that works. And we were still happy to get the watch. No hard feelings. Shit happens. But, yeah, so. Yeah, oh, it is a nylon band. I'll tell you why. Good observation. Oh, that's the wrong one. It is a nylon band, and it came with a leather band, but it was very cheap leather. Same complaint I had about the jumper. So he's got these beautiful dials, and in fact, this is plated 18 karat gold. It's real. Well, supposedly it's real gold, but it's plated. It's not solid gold. It would be like a much more expensive watch than it actually is. It came with a really cheap kind of leather band, and I know that for a dressier watch like this, a leather band is appropriate. But I really thought that the cheap leather band brought it down, and so I pulled this out of a drawer that I have, and it's black nylon, it's sailcloth, and it is not entirely appropriate for this style of watch, but until I find a nice leather band that I really feel like I like, I'm going to stick with this. But good observation. Good observation. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I'll just, so one more thing before we get into the actual content. If we, like, this guy makes beautiful, beautiful watches. Like, I was a little bit annoyed when he stopped responding and we had to do a chargeback. But ultimately I was like, no, I really want this watch. It's gorgeous. And so, like, I guess I forgive that, you know, occasionally somebody, you know, has a problem, spaces out, falls off the face of the earth. Just beautiful dials, lovely work, and I fully support it. So you can buy the dials by themselves if you want to make your own. This is one of the other ones that I wanted. I suggested to her several watches she might pick for me. I gave her a choice of like 5 or 10 so that no matter what she picked, it would be something I liked. And then I said, you pick one. And I tried to like pick ones that I might not normally pick for myself, but that I would still like, you know. But like, just gorgeous work. This guy does gorgeous work. So I'll throw him a little bone here, you know, little advertisement. I believe this is actually the one that I have right now. This is the actual one. So, yeah. Oh, and what strap is that on? Oh, no, that's the same one. Yeah, you see that strap is like, I mean, you didn't see it in person. It was a little cheap. Anyway, Seiko Dials is his website. And, you know, you might have to do a chargeback to get him to contact you, but he will deliver eventually. Anyway, that's not what we're here for, though. We're here to talk about FPV. So let's talk about FPV. We'll answer questions about FPV. By the way, Mupshot, thank you. That's a funny thing for you to say. I'm a kindred spirit. Drop off the face of the earth. Hello. Oh, no. What's happening? Why are my comments not showing up? Uh-oh. Did I break? Oh, it's because of the goddamn... Hold on. I gotta fix this real quick, Blunty. It's because I still have the that JavaScript thing that isn't working. I gotta fix the comments. Hold on, guys. We'll sit tight for 1 second, please. Copy URL. And take that out. I'll fix that permanently next time. Close that. And 1 second. There. And there. Do we lose? Where's the rest of the comments? Why do I not have the full comments feed? It's filtered. I'm only getting the filtered comments feed. That's weird.
It often will not refill like automatically.
Oh.
You only get what's been tagged.
Alrighty. Well, that's fine, I guess. Yeah, Mupshot said JB is a kindred spirit, drops off the face of the earth, and then comes back randomly. It's true, but I still respond to my messages when I'm not streaming. I'm not streaming. Okay.
We are currently not catching YouTube. At least I'm not seeing it in my. I'm not seeing any YouTube chats.
Hold on a second. It is activated.
There it goes. There it goes.
Okay.
It just
I had to scroll down. Okay. Radio. Okay, a little technical difficulties, but we will get going. Let's answer questions. Peace FPV says, Bardwell, when I fly analog, I keep getting thin white diagonal lines on my FPV screen and goggles when I arm and fly my quad. When it's idle, it doesn't do that. So anytime you have noise in your analog feed that tracks the motors, okay? Like it's not there when you arm and it starts when you arm. It's not there when you're disarmed and it starts when you arm. Or especially if it seems RPM dependent. Sometimes you'll see little black lines in the feed, and as you throttle up, they get more and more intense, okay? The motors make a lot of electrical noise because brushless motors are constantly starting and stopping the flow of electricity. The motor has 3 phases, and the ESC sends pulses of electricity 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 down the different phases, and that's what makes the motor spin. So every time that electricity starts and stops, it creates electrical noise. Okay, anytime you have current flowing, it creates electromagnetic fields. Anytime there's current flowing, but when there is current starting and stopping, that is especially when there's opportunity to create electromagnetic noise, both in the RF and also in the electrical spectrum. Long story short, ESCs make noise. And if you have an analog video transmitter, that will manifest as visible artifacts in the video feed. When you have digital video transmitters, the electrical noise makes the signal worse, but you don't see it. You just get slightly lower bit rate, for example, and everything, but you don't necessarily know why. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? The first thing to do when you have analog noise is check your capacitor. Okay, do you have a capacitor on the build? If not, you need one. And if you have a capacitor, did it like one of the legs break off and it's disconnected? Like, just go back and double check. Maybe you don't have enough capacitance, you use too small of a capacitor. There can be physical things that cause this, like if your motor screws are too long and your motor screws are touching the windings or the wires. Well, a lot of times that will just destroy the motor. It'll literally just burn up, but sometimes it won't destroy the motor, but you'll still get extra noise in the feed. And then sometimes the electrical layout of the quadcopter can cause it. Like if you're powering the video transmitter from VBAT, it'll pick up a bunch of noise. But if you move the video transmitter to a 12 volt or a 9 volt regulator, that gives it cleaner power and it cleans up the noise. This is a topic you can just spend hours and hours, days and weeks sort of trying to ferret out what's causing the noise. But those are the sort of main things to check. I mean, I've probably overlooked, like someone in the chat is like, oh, also you need to check this. Like I always check this. Those are the 3 that come to the top of my head. What else? What else would you check if you had electrical noise? Like it's not a bad ESC. All ESCs make noise. You shouldn't, you need to filter the noise so you don't see it. It's not a bad motor probably. Like, theoretically, an ESC could fail in a way that caused it to make extra noise, but, like, that's not usually what's causing this. What else could it be? Anything? Anything? No? Okay. Are we picking up, Blunty? Are we picking up the YouTube chat? I still see. What if I scroll to bottom? Scroll to bottom. Oh, there we go. I had the filter on. Great. All right. Capacitor is the number one answer. Sticks FPV says, I have a question about analog range and penetration. Range gets multiplied by 1.4 if you double the output power. How is that in terms of penetration? Does it also go by 1.4? Sticks, this is a great question. RF waves, the relationship between power and range is defined by something called the inverse square law. And in fact, I have a video. Maybe I can even find it. Here we go. The weird relationship between range and output power. This is the video you want to get. The weird relationship between range and output power if you want to dive in to, like, the deep stuff. Right? But the short version is that 2x the power equals 4x the range. I'm sorry, 4x the power equals 2x the range. And 2x the power equals 1.4x the range. These are easy to memorize multiples that help you just do math in your head without having to pull out a calculator and do logarithms or a chart. Okay? And the reason why for that is you can watch this video or you can study the inverse square law, which relates to RF. But what's the effect on penetration? And penetration is a little bit... Penetration follows the same sort of basic physical principles, but here's the thing. Let's imagine that we have a radio signal, and instead of being clear line of sight, it's hitting a big concrete wall. Okay? The way to think about obstacles is that they have a certain number of dB of absorption. They're going to reduce the signal by a certain number of dB. So if I've got a signal and at 10 feet, that signal is at some power, some number of dBm. Like, just for the sake of math, let's say that at 10 feet away, the signal is at minus 40 dBm. Minus 40 dBm. Well, double the range, 4x the power, that's 6 dB. So at 20 feet, it would be at minus 46 dBm. Okay? So we lose 6 dB going 10 additional feet, or doubling the range. And then we would lose another 6 dB between 20 and 40 feet, and another 6 dB between 40 and 80 feet, and so on and so on. But between 10 and 20 feet, we've got 6 dB, going from minus 40 to minus 46 dBm. Okay. Now let's say that I take a big concrete wall, and I put a big concrete wall right there. Let's say that concrete wall absorbs 20 dB. Now when I go from 10 feet to 20 feet, I'm going to lose 6 dB for the distance, and an additional 20 dB going through the concrete wall. So I'm going to lose 26 dB. So when thinking about penetration, you always think about the range, because the inverse square law, the line of sight loss, is always in play. Okay? But then as you add obstacles between you and the drone, you get additional loss proportional to, well, it's not just the thickness of the obstacle. Some obstacles, some substances absorb more RF energy. Some substances are more transparent, okay? Like plastic is very transparent to RF energy. If we were to hypothetically put a big plastic wall between them, you wouldn't see much change at all, okay? All right. So the way to think about, that's how you think about penetration. What is the effect on range? It depends. It depends on how much absorption the obstacle is having. If I put a 20 dB concrete wall between the 10-foot and the 20-foot mark in that previous example, I'm going to see nothing on the other side of that wall. And I'm going to increase my output power by 6 dB, by 10 dB, by 15 dB, until I increase my output power by enough to get the signal to the other side of the wall. I'm going to see nothing, and then it's going to start creeping through. But basically, if I put a 20 dB wall between me and the transmitter, I'm going to need an additional 20 dB of output power to counteract that. So that what you do, if you're doing math, is you add up the path loss. That's the line of sight loss due to the inverse square law. And then we also we sum the loss of any obstacles between us, and that's how much power you need to get to the other side. So obstacles are very difficult to predict. And in the real world, obstacles are very difficult to predict because also there are bounces and reflections, right? So I might have a concrete wall between me and the drone, but there might be a window in the building, and my signal's going in the window and bouncing around the room, and so I don't actually see 20 dB of loss because I'm not taking the direct line path through the wall. And it gets really complicated to actually predict. But that's sort of, if you simplify it, that's the way to think about it.
On a basic level, though, you are essentially getting 1.4 times more penetration points, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like because a user isn't going to, like, you know, if I go up by this much point, like if I double my power, am I going to penetrate through a 1.4 times as much material? You know, I guess is like,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes,
like
yes, but the way I think about it, you're right. The math works out that way. But as long as the signal is quote unquote inside the wall, you don't see the effect of that in the real world because your receiver is never going to be inside the wall. So like at a certain output power, the signal is just like touching the wall. And even that concept is flawed because, of course, when I transmit, my signal goes out eventually everywhere in the universe. Except past a certain distance, it's so far below the noise floor that it can't be distinguished, right? So let's imagine that at a given threshold of power, the signal is just reaching the wall. And now I increase the power by another 3 dB. It goes 1.4 times further into the wall. But until I get it powerful enough to get to the other side of the wall, I don't actually see that effect. So from our perspective, obstacles seem almost like stepwise. That if the wall takes 20 dB of power to get from one side to the other, I don't see any change until I give the full 20 dB and then it comes out the other side. Right? And so it can seem like, well, I added 10 dB of power and I didn't get any additional range. And you're right, you're getting further into the wall, but that doesn't help you. Yeah. Cool. Very cool. I love RF stuff. That used to be my bread and butter back in the day, before I did YouTube and drones. I did RF stuff. Oh, let's see here. What do you think about discus launch gliders? Mark FPV, thank you for being a patron. Mark FPV's in the Discord server. That's how I know he's a patron. They, him, her. I guess I shouldn't assume that Mark is a he. Whatever. Thank you, Mark, for being a patron. What do you think about discus launch gliders? They look awesome. I actually, like, on the list of, hey, that's cool, I should do that sometime, and then I never do. Discus launch gliders are high up there. I used to know a guy, and he, like, bought a discus launch glider and was playing with it. And he was like an FPV drone guy, but one day he did the thing that I will never probably do. And I was tempted to ask, hey, can I try it? But, like, if you screw up discus launch glider, you can crash the shit out of it, and I didn't want to risk like destroying his aircraft. For those who don't know, a DLG, why can I not grab this page? Why can I not grab this page? What is going on? I just want to grab this page, and I want to take it out of here. There we go. I don't know why that wasn't working. Let's go to an old flight test video.
So this is really exciting here. We have
these are the guys I learned FPV from 6 years ago. It seems like it would have been longer. But basically, a discus launch glider.
This is pretty much my primary mission. When the very first glider, I had a good price. I only get you to fly.
It has a finger hook in the wing, and you throw it like a discus.
They're usually selling their used stuff.
And
Some
they
of
go
the professionals
so
at the
high.
competition are buying new planes every year. Yeah. So when they're buying 2 or 3 new planes a year, that means they got 2 or 3 used planes to.
And then you glide it back down again. And the guys who are good can like just glide it right back to themselves, catch it in their hand, and whip it again. And you think, well, how fun could that be? Like, obviously, lots of things are fun. The guys who are good at this, they'll launch. I'm not going to throw out a number because it'll be wrong. It's ridiculously high. How high they launch and how long they can fly. See, that wasn't even like a full launch.
DLG,
and he whipped it.
Finger on the bottom.
There's your little finger
And
hook.
all we do, we are the engine.
Right, he's not even trying. You just whip it up there in the sky and then wee, fly it around. Look how much fun you can have. No motor, no nothing. You get 30 seconds to a minute of flying, maybe longer if you're very good. And then if you're really good, you fly it right back into your... He's going to catch it. Come on, buddy. No, yeah. Right back into your hand
You can either go
and whip it
for
again.
a longer flight time or for aerobatics. Myself, well, you get one guess.
He's not doing the full spin. I guess he doesn't care about that. I don't know. Whee!
With a 1 meter wingspan, it also has benefits over larger versions, like my Blaster 2, which you do look kind of ridiculous running around in circles with. This one,
there we
without
go.
even moving
Woo!
from a standing still point, you can still get a load of height and a full flight.
Like, that's wild, man. I don't know why my YouTube has been doing this lately. Look at this. That looks like a... Was that 1 meter? 2 meter? I don't know. I don't know what's a meter. Wow! Right? Look how high it goes. Anyway, that's a DLG. If you guys aren't familiar with DLGs, just because you're just deep in the FPV world and you don't know they exist, they're super cool. You wish they still made them. Surely they still made them, right? Yeah. Anyway, thanks for asking. When do you release your own drone brand? Never. I do not want to be in that business. That seems like a miserable business to be in, and I don't want to be in it. I just get to criticize everybody else's work, and the few products that I have released, I've released a few products. They are incredibly stressful because, I'm never directly the manufacturer. And so anytime I hear about a problem, I have to go back and I have to be like, hey, try to run it down, try and keep the quality high. But ultimately, I'm not the one who's like managing the factory. I'm not the one who's responsible for that stuff. Just my name is on it. So obviously I have some influence, but ultimately I have limited influence. And sometimes there are manufacturing problems and it stresses me out just because I want people to get a good product. Sometimes there are customer service issues. People say, oh, I bought this product and then I had a problem and the vendor didn't help me. And obviously sometimes that's BS. Sometimes, obviously there's but it's just a lot of stress. And, that's just with like a few limited products, never mind a full line. So nope, I'm not interested. But thanks for asking. Best beginner analog FPV goggles. I gotta say, I've been hearing, so normally I would say the EV800D, the Eachine EV800D, but these are the HD version, but there is a analog version of these goggles. VR04, no, VR, come on. There's an analog version. Let me put it on screen. I gotta say, I have the HD version of these goggles for use with the new Beta FPV P1 system. Oh my god. Pop-ups are the worst. They are not... The fit of the old box goggles leaves a lot to be desired. Okay? Having said that, overall, these seem like a pretty well-made set of goggles. And the fit is not worse than any other box goggle I've ever used. They all fit kind of badly, and you have to kind of work with them. Maybe custom foam, maybe various things to get them to fit on your face. And they're $75. I would like to try the analog version. In fact, I think Beta FPV is going to send me the analog version, and I'll try it out. Of course, we have to see how the receiver is, but for $75, if it's like barely usable for a beginner, I feel like maybe this is the new budget choice. I don't know. Let's check it out. I was impressed with the screen on the HD version for sure, and the fit was usable. I was able to make it work, although it wasn't perfect, but then for me, that's the big advantage of binocular style goggles, is the way they fit on the face. They fit a lot better. All right. Let's get some super chats knocked out now that I've babbled for 40 minutes. Exo Truck, thank you for a $10 donation. Exo Truck just says, thanks for the VTX help. And a $10 donation. Appreciate you. I like my Fat Shark Scouts. Fat Shark Scout, also solid. Little better fit. A little smaller, I think. Fat Shark Scout is solid. How much is it, though? I think it's a little more expensive. Fat Shark Scout is $229. Yeah, so I would hope it's better. Yeah, so that people say, what's the best beginner one? They're usually asking for something a little more budget. $229 for the Fat Shark Scout. Yeah. Simply Electronics, thank you for £5. I started building my first quad with the idea of autonomy, so I went with Pixhawk. I've been trying to make it work for freestyle. Bad idea. Yeah, I knew a guy once upon a time, and he was heavy into the Arduino Pixhawk world. That was his bread and butter. And to be, like, this guy is literally one of the smartest people I know with Arduino. Like, he could make Arduino dance. Some of the stuff he did was so impressive. And he gave me an Arduino drone that he took as a challenge, that he wanted to make this Arduino drone do acro, like, better than Betaflight. And I was like, oh, good luck, but no. And he handed it to me, and he had done everything he could do to make it fly as good as it could. And I was like, yeah, it's not, like, it was okay. Like, obviously, I'm no Min-Chan Kim, who's going to, like, run at, ridiculous speed and, like, notice all the little subtleties of the PID tune. He made it okay. I flew acro on it, and it was okay. It wasn't great. And that was, like, with one of the smartest people I know, working for, like, 2 straight days, doing research on the internet, like, how to make Arduino fly good in acro, So I was like, yeah, Arduino just not going to be as good in acro. That's not what it's made for. But it could be a fun challenge if that's what you're into. Flugberg. Where can I get useful tips for long-range FPV with a Chimera 7 Pro in the mountains to make sure I don't lose signal? How much of a risk is it compared to a DJI FPV? Thank you for 10 Swiss francs. So here's the first thing. There is not as much information out there about long-range flying. And one of the main reasons for that is that long-range flying, most places, isn't legal. It is some form of prohibited, okay? So there's a lot of people out there who do long-range flying, and they don't put their shit up on the internet because they don't want to get in trouble, okay? So you're already at a disadvantage there. The number one piece of information I would say is that as soon as you start stretching your legs, and here's what I would say. When am I crossing over into long range? When I crash, if I can walk to where the drone is, or maybe drive to where the drone is, and pick it up again, that's not long range, okay? As soon as I cross the line, and if I go down, number one, I might not get it back because I just won't know where it is. And number two, even if I have GPS coordinates for where it is, it's going to be difficult because I'm going to have to drive down this road, and then potentially it's going to have crashed on somebody's private property or in the middle of the mountains where it's just not accessible. As soon as you cross that line, you're doing long range, and you need to absolutely change your mindset. Let me tell you a little story. Definitely not me. This story definitely did not happen to me. Hang on one second. Oh, great. Now that I'm listening, it stopped. I was hearing a noise. It's driving me crazy. Okay. I guess the noise has stopped. Definitely not me. Was test flying a drone that is intended. The desire for this drone, the person who wanted this drone asked if it could fly, not like a super long range, like 5 or 10 kilometers. And it was a very windy day. And whoever this was who told me this story put the drone up, first verified that the battery could last long enough to fly 10. So basically just flew in a square in a field until the battery died. And like in iNav, you can turn on a trip distance in the OSD. And it was like 12 kilometers. I'm like, okay, great. By the way, 12 kilometers, if you're trying to fly 10 kilometers, bear in mind you have to fly home again. So you would want 20 kilometers, not unless you didn't intend to fly it home again, which would be silly. So, okay, so the drone can fly. The battery will last long enough to fly 10 kilometers. That's the first check, right? And then it's like, okay, well, how's the video system going to be? Is the video going to last 10 kilometers? Let's give it a try. Let's put the drone up. Climb. You want altitude. Again, 400 feet is the legal maximum. But if you're going to go, what's the rule of thumb? For every 1 kilometer, you climb 100 feet. There's a ratio that long-range pilots know. I don't know it. But you don't get 10 kilometers at 400 feet, especially if there's mountains or hills or other topography. So climb up to whatever altitude and start flying. Start flying out. Just pick a direction. Go a direction. Do. Wow. If you're doing long-range stuff, you might put in your OSD a metric, which is milliamp hours per kilometer. That's basically your fuel efficiency. And on this drone, when the little test was being done, the milliamp hours per kilometer was around, say, 60 to 100. Flying, doing the long-range test. Wow. 10 milliamp hours per kilometer. That's unusual. During the flight around the field, the cruising speed was, let's say it was 60 kph. Wow. I'm going 120 kilometers per hour. Hey, long-range pilots who know a thing or two. If you have a ridiculously high efficiency and a ridiculously high cruise speed, what does that mean? It means you have a tailwind. You have a massive tailwind. And somewhere around 5 kilometers out, the person who definitely wasn't me was like, I think it's time to turn around and come home. And hit return to home. And the drone went, whoop, turned to home, nose down, and continued to go backwards. The home distance continued to increase. And that was when whoever it was who was telling me this story realized they might be in trouble. So what did they do? They flipped it into acro mode and nosed down some more and raised throttle. And long story short, they were able to limp it home and land with the battery was at 2.7 volts, which it was a 18650. It was a cylinder cell, so it could go down to 2.5 technically, and got it home. So there were some mistakes made. When the person told me that story, I thought that's a really educational experience that deserves to be shared with the world. Which, of course, if one was in the United States, there would be many, many rules broken. Altitude limits busted, line of sight limits busted. So I would, of course, never do that. But it's an educational story for people who are deciding to do that somewhere where it's legal. And my point there is that as soon as you start doing long range, there are so many more complicated things that you don't know about. And you got to kind of give yourself the room to learn those lessons. Hopefully not the hard way. The number one thing you should do is have return to home set, okay? And test your return to home so that if you lose video or if you lose control, you have a chance of getting the drone back. It's not 100% because the wind is a factor. One of the things that the pilot did in that situation is he changed altitude. So he was at a certain altitude and the wind was blowing him away. He was able to reduce altitude and not lose video, thank God, and find an altitude where the wind was weaker and make it home. If he had stayed at the same altitude, he probably wouldn't have made it home. Real guys who are doing real-world long-range missions study wind patterns. And they'll launch a mission at a time when winds are favorable. Or they'll know that if I go this way around the mountain, the winds will be against me, etc., etc. But, so number one, have return to home, test it thoroughly. Number two, the return to home defaults may be too conservative if you're doing long range stuff, especially with a multi-rotor instead of a plane. You may need to increase the pitch angle and increase the target speed so that you can fight a headwind. And then number two, don't just take off and go 5 kilometers and then go, maybe I'll make it home. One of the problems that guy ran into is that when he turned to home, his home direction arrow was kind of screwed up because he was in a massive crosswind and the compass wasn't working, so he was just basing his return to home on GPS track. And so if you were serious about this, what you would do is you would study the ground. You would look at a satellite map and you would go, okay, I'm taking off from here. I see I've got this mountain here, this farm here, you get some ground landmarks so you'd know where you were. So when you're coming home, like if I follow this road, I end up back where I was started. Then you wouldn't just rely on your GPS. And then you'd take off and you'd go out 500 meters and you'd turn around and say, okay, here's what the field looks like from here because it looks different up in the air. And you go out 1 kilometer and you turn around and you say, here's what it looks like from 1 kilometer away. And you kind of build some sight pictures. These are all good advice. If you fly long range, you will lose a bird. That's a fact. You're gonna. You'll have a mechanical problem in the middle of the flight. It'll drop out. Or you'll lose link and you'll return to home and it won't make it home and you won't know why. That's just going to happen on a long enough timeline. It's kind of like when you ride a motorcycle. There's people who've dropped a motorcycle and people who haven't dropped one yet, that they say. There's long-range pilots who've lost an aircraft and there's ones who haven't lost it yet. So, I mean, I really think you should think carefully. If you crash your aircraft and a lipo fire starts, like, you could argue it's irresponsible to do long-range flying in the desert or in the scrubby grasslands in the summer when it's dry. You could make an argument. You could argue, like, what are the chances of that happening? Well, probably none. Probably not high. If I drop a multi-rotor, and is it going to land on some? I've seen people do long-range stuff over populated areas. I wouldn't do that. Of course, I wouldn't do any of it because it's all illegal. But hypothetically, if I were going to do long range, I would do it over a remote area where if I drop the drone, it's just going to fall in the trees and probably not hurt anybody. I wouldn't do it over a populated area. So,
can I also say?
Yeah.
The end of this question says, how much of a risk is it compared to a DJI FPV? And so I think you should be aware that a DJI FPV drone or a DJI drone have the same risks you're describing now, right? A motor can just die, right? Electronics can fail, right? There are navigation issues in the software, right? Whatever can happen and cause the same issues. So you should be concerned about the same issues regardless of this drone versus the previous drone. The other thing I would say is somebody in chat mentioned, if you are going directly from a DJI FPV to a 7-inch Pro that you're trying to fly long range, you should fit another drone in between those. Like, it's probably a good idea to build a 3-inch or a 5-inch. Understand how building a drone works, how Betaflight works, how GPS rescue works, like how to fix things that happen normally, how to, like what to look out for with link quality and range so you don't lose a link. Like all those kind of things are very important as well.
Yeah. The closer you are to home when something goes wrong, the more recoverable it's likely to be, if only because you have more battery. So if you're going to attempt long range, I would say, you start with learning to fly a drone at sub 1 kilometer. just local flying in your local field. You learn what goes wrong with drones that causes, and someday you'll be flying that drone and it'll fall out of the air because you burned a motor, and you'll be like, oh, wow. You'll figure out. And I think like a year, easily a year, you could spend just flying drones around local, just a field, a bando, places where it's recoverable in the, say, sub 1 to 2 kilometer range. Okay? Probably 1 kilometer. After maybe a year of that, you know enough about RC aircraft that you have a good chance of building an aircraft that is going to stay in the air and not surprise you. And then you could start introducing long range stuff. And you fly out 2 or 3 kilometers, right? And you have a good solid return to home. And you're so confident your battery, you have 3 times as much battery as you really need. But the first time you go out, oh, I'm going to this mountaintop. Oh, I'm going to this mountaintop. Oh, it's so beautiful. And then you turn to home and you're like, where the frick am I? Oh my God. Oh, I think I'm over that way. And you start flying that way. And instead of the distance to home getting smaller, it gets larger. And then you lose video because you flew behind a mountaintop you forgot existed. When that happens, you'd rather be 3 kilometers from home than 10 kilometers from home, because you have a chance of saving it. So you slowly give yourself a chance to experience all those mistakes in times like this example that I gave. When it hit 5 kilometers and whoever it was who was flying the drone was like, I think it's time to come home now. The battery was at like 90%, 80%, And so like you could have been like, oh yeah, we're doing good. And if that aircraft hadn't turned around at almost that exact minute, it would not have made it home. So you could be conservative about those things and work your way up and make your mistakes. Anyway, as far as DJI goes, DJI drones are very reliable in their build and in their software. Like the compass on that aircraft was screwed up. And so the GPS heading was being used for direction home, and it got screwed up by the crosswind. That wouldn't happen on a DJI drone. It just wouldn't take off if the compass was screwed up. So like a DJI drone will protect you from a lot of mistakes, but they're not impervious to them. All right. Rickard FPV says, thank you for $5, Rickard. I'm building a quad from older parts right now. One of the motors won't spin up. How do I tell if the problem is the motor or the ESC? It's very simple. You swap a different motor that you know works onto the ESC, and if it still doesn't spin, it's the ESC. It's risky because if the ESC fried the motor, then the ESC will now fry the second motor, and then you'll be like, oh, I have 2 bad motors, and then you'll put another motor on, and it'll fry that motor. So, like, be careful, but there's always a risk, but that's the simplest way of doing it. There are a couple checks you can do with a multi-rotor, with a multimeter, that if the ESC fails the check, then 100% the ESC is bad. Let's see, yeah. So here's the thing, though. This is the video you want. Is your ESC broken? How to find out, okay? But these checks tell you that the ESC is bad. But if the ESC passes these checks, it could still be bad, just in a different way that these checks don't test for. Okay? I keep hearing a sound. Yeah. Weird. Yeah, I think someone's upstairs. I don't know. Anyway. Great. Now I've identified the sound. It will still annoy me, but maybe I'll be able to ignore it. Please share your thoughts on FPV at the 2026 Olympics. Well, I'll share my thoughts, but I'm not going to look up any footage because I'm sure the Olympics will copyright strike the crap out of me. Yeah, there's some amazing FPV footage coming out of the Olympics. My favorite is the person chasing, I think it's a luge track or some kind of, some event similar to a luge track, downhill sledding, something. And a drone is literally chasing them down the track and like making it look effortless. And I'm like, this guy's good. Whoever's flying that, the Skeleton. Yeah, I want to show it, but I'm not going to show it. Skeleton is the name of that. Thank you, Mupshot. Skeleton is a I think it's a one-man. It's similar to luge, but luge your feet first and skeleton your head first. Anyway, you're going down one of these tracks, and the drone is like locked it's locked in on the guy. And I'm like, I almost don't believe it's a drone, and like I want it to be just like a camera on a wire, kind of like they sometimes do with the downhill skiing. Wild how good this pilot is. So there's just a lot of FPV footage, and I got to say, a news story said that it was a sub 250 drone, and I was like, the hell it is. Like, you're getting a broadcast transmitter on a sub 250 drone. Give me a break. And then I saw it, and it was. And again, I'm not going to show this video because I'm sure that all Olympic stuff is just copy protected all to hell. But this video right here, high-speed drones revolutionize Winter Olympics coverage. Thank you, Eirik Toft, for sharing that. You can see the drone the guy's using. You can see some of the equipment he's using. It is crazy. The technology's crazy, but also just the pure piloting skill is crazy. These guys are fantastic. So yeah, big fan. What's on your mind today, JB? Unrelated to FPV. You know what's on my mind? I'll tell you what's on my mind. Oh, for the last, month. For the last, month, what's been on? Unrelated to FPV. Thank you for a $2 super chat. It's not watches, Marco, although watches are always on my mind a little bit. No. It's not watches. I swear to God, I'm not just going to spend the whole rest of the live stream playing Satisfactory. Oh my God. I must have... I don't want to look at how many hours I have in this save. Oh, this is my first my first fuel generation plant. 'Cause it made some mistakes there. Here's my second one. I'm also making mistakes here, but different, less mistakes. Not quite finished. Yeah, I've been playing the hell out of this game. It is it's a factory optimizer game similar to Factorio, but unlike Factorio, this one is first person. Hold on, I'll show you one more thing. Come on, go. Hold on. I'll give you the overhead look. Walking is the worst. Let's go the fast way.
People are saying the stream is freezing.
Oh no. I wonder if... I'm not showing any dropped packets. There we go. Got my little factories down there. Oh yeah. Anyway, this is what I've been working. Look at all that. Built a train. See it all from up here. Got shit over there. Got a factory over there. Got a little extraction point down there. Anyway, that's what I've been working on my spare time. Just playing Satisfactory. Super fun game. Hopefully the stream will end. Hopefully the stream didn't freeze too much. Yeah. Satisfactory. It's a pretty fun game. If you like Factorio, actually, people who like Factorio kind of hate Satisfactory at some of the times because Factorio is top-down 2-dimensional and Satisfactory is 3-dimensional, and so in many ways it's less efficient. But what Satisfactory has that Factorio will never have is when you get in a train, you're in a three-dimensional train choo-chooing through the landscape instead of just like down on a little two-dimensional. And it's pretty fun. Oh, anyway. Craig Mitchell, thank you for a $5 super chat. Can I set 2 GPS return settings on one quad with one switch it goes straight up to return and another switch makes it return at the current altitude? Not with Betaflight or iNav. Probably with ArduPilot, because basically whatever you want ArduPilot to do, it can probably do it. But not with Betaflight or iNav. Can you explain how HD0 works? Thank you for a $2 super chat. I cannot. I mean, but you know who can? Here's what I would have you do. I mean, like, I could like badly regurgitate things other people have said. I would suggest that you, number one, HD0 SharkBite, how it works. Chris Rosser, very good at technical deep dives. So this video, how the SharkBite HD0 video system works, would probably be the most direct answer to your question. And then the next place I would send you is this video with Madstech, who is also very technical. And it's an interview with Carl from HD0. He's the designer. Well, probably he's not the sole designer. He probably has engineers working for/with him. But Carl Zhao is not a sort of non-technical manager. He is a very technical engineering-based person and the owner and founder of HD0 and understands the technology at a very, very deep level. And so this interview with Madstech would probably also be of interest to you. So if you want a sort of a technical deep dive, Chris Rosser. If you want a little bit more of a conversational stuff that touches on a lot of different aspects of it, this video, or just watch both of them. That's where I would send you. It's very interesting to talk about and think about what HD0 does differently than DJI and Walksnail. But no, I would not explain it well. Thank you for a 20 rupee donation from Ajayika. What's your word on the DJI Avata 360? I don't have a lot to say about it. I did hear that it got FCC sort of approval before the ban went in, so it will be able to be imported, I believe. So I don't have a lot to. They'll probably do an amazing job, and it will be better than the A1. Anytime anyone gets one up on DJI, like someone does something that DJI hasn't done yet, it turns out DJI was already working on that thing and when they release it 6 months later and it's even better, and you're like, I regret spending money. I should always just wait for DJI to do it better. So that's my prediction for the Avata 360. It will be everything the A1 360 drone is, but better. Just given DJI historically, that's how they roll. Thanks for everything, Zorks. Stay rocking. Thank you. Oh, $50. Thank you. Very generous. Thank you, Zorksa. Does it make sense to buy the RunCam Split as a budget option for quality DVR? Thank you for 750 ISK. I tried the RunCam Thumb, but it's super fragile. Sure. I mean, the RunCam, I don't know if the RunCam Split is fragile, but it will do onboard recording. Yes. Yes. It's worth a try. It's worth a try. Blunty says, I get really annoyed with the belt spaghetti you have to make and load balancing of materials you have to do in Factorio and Satisfactory. I wouldn't presume, Blunty, to know better than you, because I know you probably gave everything a fair shake. But I just unlocked trains, and one of the joys of trains for me is that you can go back and take your belt spaghetti and you can replace it with a train track. And then you can like clean up some of that belt spaghetti. You still end up with some spaghetti when you get to
Okay,
the
I mean,
final manufacturing
In
phase.
Factorio, I haven't done Satisfactory since they added trains, but in Factorio, when you get to trains, that just means you now have to manage unloading trains, and you have to manage the fact that you're getting bulk materials at once with the train. The train needs to get back to pick up the materials again and then get back on the route. So you have to figure out where to store all the materials, or you need to load them in the system in such a way, or you have a lapse in the way the system works because you don't have a buffer of the materials that come out of them, right?
All
like,
valid.
It's all management of these systems that are
Right.
like, oh, well, now I've got 20 coal in this belt, and I only need 10 coal, so I've got to overflow coal. It's backing up on this belt, and now I've got to figure out how I'm going to manage this. So I got to split this out, so I have a splitter, so now I get 10 and 10. The 10's got to go over here to be dumped into a chest that I deal with later because I don't know what to do with it right now.
But that'd be okay. What I'm hearing you say right now is, I don't like soccer because like you have to kick the ball and people try to stop you from kicking the ball and they try to take the ball away from you and then you have to kick the ball but it has to go in the net and then there's this guy in front of the net who's like tries to keep you from kicking the ball in the net and I'm like, it sounds like you just don't like soccer because all of the things you said are exactly what I like about the game. I'm like, yeah, you have to, this belt has 120 per minute on it, but you're only using 108. So then what are you going to do with the addition? Yeah, no, you're just describing all the things I like about the game.
Yeah, I would like a simpler version of that, where it's just like the coal needs to go from the coal place to the place that needs the coal, not like 20 coal needs to go there every minute. And then if I add in some kind of modifier upgrade, so then I get 22 coal, then everything's messed up. It's like
my wife plays a game. It's a mobile game. Hold on, I'm gonna ask her what the name is. It's a mobile game, and it is similar in the sort of resource planning / optimization, but my wife plays it on mobile. She's actually one of the top players of this game in terms of like it's a mobile game, so like the longer you play it and the more money you spend, the higher up you will get in the tier. I don't know how much money she spent. I'm sure she spends some. I don't have the impression that she's bought her way into being a whale. I get the impression that she's just been playing this game out.
Are you talking about Arknight's Enfield?
I don't think so. It's.
Okay.
I'm going to ask her what the name of it is. She's actually taking a nap right now.
There's a new gacha game out that's kind of Factorio-like called Arknight's Enfield.
That's not it.
Okay.
In this game, you are like reclaiming a destroyed world. Like you plant trees, and the trees make gold. And you explore and you clean up the ocean and you clean up the rivers and you can like drop meteors and the meteors make resource nodes. Maybe someone in the chat will be like, oh, I know what game this is. It does have trains and it has some like you need to get resources from point A to point B, but it's not like at the level of, it's like I'm making so many microchips a minute and I need gold and I need microchips and I don't know. I'm just repeating things she was saying.
Well, like.
I wonder if that game would be more your speed.
Yeah, in chat they were saying they like SimCity, like SimCity 2000. And like in SimCity, you just make the place where the water comes from, and then you drag the water pipe to over where the water goes to, and then you just have to make sure you make enough water, and then you're not like dealing with water overflow and managing how many engineers work at the water plant. There's like different levels of detail that we all like, and just for me, it gets a little tedious. I mean, I probably have 300 hours in Factorio, but at some point, you get to the third level of chip, and then you're like, I have, it's literally 300 squares big of my machine to make, and then I've got a main bus that's like 20 things wide, and now you're asking me, now I need to add drones to move things between the things, or I need to, and that needs power, and I need nuclear.
So here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about Satisfactory over Factorio. In Satisfactory, the world is enormous. And people express, I've built this factory and I'm making, 5 per minute of this item that was at the end of my last tech tree. And now I've upgraded to a new tier and I need 100 per minute to make the next thing that's going to be 5 per minute. And I can't do that with this factory. And it's like, stop. Just go somewhere else, anywhere else in the world and make a whole new factory. And it's like with Factorio, and I played Factorio through to the end game. I actually did it on my first save too. I never restarted a save. I just started playing the game, and eventually, several times I wiped my whole factory and started from scratch. But I never started a new save. I kind of bear that as a mark of pride that I finished Factorio on the same save I started it on. And And I did have those moments where I was like, I can't fit any more stuff in here. And I didn't want to just go start from scratch somewhere else because it was, but like, it's very easy and satisfactory to make a small factory making just enough of what you need to make this item. And then when you need the next item, you just do it all again. And you do it with the next tier of stuff so it's more efficient. And that other factory's still over there making that item. And, you know, maybe you're syncing it. Maybe you're using it. You don't know. Anyway. Yeah.
Apparently, chat wants us to talk about drones. I'm not sure why that is.
Well, I talked some about drones. Runcam split, sure. It's worth buying one and seeing if it meets your need. Simply Electronics official, how many batteries have you killed by undervoltaging them? Thank you for £5. I'm finding battery management to be one of the most difficult skills. I don't usually kill batteries. The times when I've killed batteries are when I switched to SMC batteries. SMC, just spelled like it sounds, they make these batteries with a really, I don't know if it's a different chemistry or if they're just very, very good quality cells. They hold voltage so well that you'll get ridiculous performance, and it'll go 3.7, 3.6, 3.5. And normally when your battery's at 3.5, it's sagging a lot as you touch the throttle and you're like, oh, I got to land. But SMC batteries, they just hold voltage. And so you're like 3.6, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.0. They just fall off a cliff at the end. When I first started using SMC batteries, I killed like 3 of them by not realizing that like I had to really watch the voltage. I couldn't use battery sag as an indicator that the battery was dead like I'm used to doing. So, the other time I kill batteries is if I'm just working on the bench and I plug in a battery because I have a drone that I'm testing, or I have a set of goggles or a screen, and I just plug a battery in, and then I just run it down to 0. And I'm like, oh, shit. So, you know what I've done? I'll share with you. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Oh. I can't find one handy right this minute. I'll show you. I'll just show you on the internet. I bought a bunch of these. Oh, there we go. Literally purchased May 10th, 2025. I just bought a pack of these. And these will, whenever I'm using a battery on the bench, I plug one of these into the balance lead. And if it starts screaming at me, then I'm like, I have to get a new battery. And that has helped. Spingify, thank you for 2,500 CLP. The future will be tiny whoops with 18650 batteries. That doesn't make any sense. They will take over 2S2, a Pavo Pico 2 with 18650. Okay, so it's not a whoop if it has an 18650 battery. It may be a 1S micro drone, but a whoop by definition, like I realize we're stretching the definition of what a whoop is in this world, but by the time you put the weight of an 18650 on it, it's not a whoop anymore. I will die on that hill. But 1S with 18650, maybe. 5 minutes of flight time to 20 minutes. I mean, you've got the weight, and you've got by the time you add the weight of that battery, you're also increasing the chances of damage to the frame. I think there will definitely be there is a place for 1S micros, but they're not going to take the place of whoops. A 16 to 18 gram 1S 65 millimeter drone is going to do things that nothing with an 18650 ever will. Just because it's so much lighter. But I'm happy you're excited. Oh my God, we're caught up on Super Chats. What else have we got? People are asking, hey, where is Bardwell in the queue? So the only priority that I consistently give to the queue is always prioritize Super Chats because, like, that's just kind of the deal. If you pay money, then you get to go to the front of the line. I'm sorry, as long as we live in a world where money exists, that's like how we're going to play it. Eventually, you get to be such a big streamer that you can pick and choose and ignore the Super Chats. I'm not there. I don't feel like I'm there. The next thing I do is I give priority to the people in the Discord. They are slightly behind the super chats, but I try to prioritize the Discord questions. And then the other thing I do is I just have this list of questions that Blunty queued, and I just look through the list and I decide which questions look interesting to me, and I take them in the order that I prefer. So if you want to go to the front of the line, leave a super chat. Otherwise, you just have to sort of hope that I get to your question. And if I don't think your question's interesting, I'll be like, oh, okay. The other thing is that some questions are very technical and are not good content for the live stream. Unlike talking about Satisfactory, which is excellent content for the live stream. Shut your mouth. Here's a question from the Discord. I'm just getting into the whole tiny whoop racing thing. By the way, I'm just going to say whoop racing because I don't want to get sued for misusing the logo, the registered trademark tiny whoop, copyright trademark Jesse Perkins. I almost said Jesse Pinkman. I've been watching Breaking Bad with my wife again. Jesse Perkins. I'm getting into whoop racing. I encourage everyone to excise the word tiny whoop from your vocabulary and just say whoop. Tiny Whoop is a registered trademark, and Jesse Perkins enforces that trademark against people who use it. Probably he won't enforce it against you, but if you're a business or a YouTuber and you use the word Tiny Whoop to refer to something that isn't a official, he has the, actually I think he lost the trademark too. But anyway, I've been trying to stop saying Tiny Whoop and just say Whoop. You know, I was like, okay, you want me to stop saying your name? I will stop saying it. Of course, now I'm saying it. I'm just getting into the whole whoop racing thing. I've been interested in RaceGow. Are there any particular tracks that give the best skill progression that are ideal to practice on? No. Like, you may like some RaceGow tracks better than others, but they're all they're all challenging. When I first started doing RaceGow, I found the 12-inch gates. Are they 20? They're 24-inch gates. I found that to be very challenging. A lot of people whoop race with like big 3-foot gates. They're fairly generous. The RaceGow format is very challenging and will absolutely make you a good pilot. But just pick a track that has elements that you like and then set it up and race it until you get bored and then pick a different one. That's the beauty of the RaceGow format is it uses PVC pipes to make the course. For people who don't know, RaceGow is a racing format put on by FPV Skittles is the guy's name. Here's his handle. And you build a course. Actually, this is really good. This is really great. You build a course out of 24-inch, 2-foot pieces of PVC pipe and connectors. And so it's completely, you can customize it. You can make the course however you want. He's got lists of courses on his website. And it makes you a so much better pilot. It's very challenging. Like, this is a very tight course, but you can set it up in a very small area, relatively small. Like, probably not a bedroom, although I have set a RaceGow course up in a hotel room. I had the track up on top of the bed, and I crashed into the walls a lot. Like, you need a little bit of room to blow out the turns unless you're an excellent pilot. But you could set it up in a living room or a great room or a den. And, or a garage, for sure. A 2-car garage, definitely. And, you know, and then you don't like the course, you just make a different course. And it's just it's going to cost you, you might spend $50, maybe $100 tops on PVC and connectors, depending on how much they are in your area. You just cut them up, and then you make courses. It's super awesome. But no, there's not a particular course that I would steer you towards to like learn fundamentals. Just pick one that you like the look of. Sometimes you got one and it's got a particular way that it flows and you're like, yeah, I don't like that one. Or there's an element like that you don't like. Yeah. What was your practice regime? I took the course for the week and I just started flying it and I tried to get faster. That's it. You definitely want to have a lap timer, okay? Even a cheap little one-person lap timer, because if you don't know your lap times, you don't know if you're going faster. You can absolutely have cases where you feel like it was a faster lap, but you were blowing out the turns and racing sloppy, and it was actually slower. So you really need a lap timer to know if you're getting better. What's your preferred method of cleaning your drones? None of the above. I do not clean my drones. The only part of my drone I clean is the camera. The rest of them I just fly. I have absolutely no interest in my drones being clean. I once crashed a drone in the mud. And I took it home. And I let the mud dry. And I shook the mud off. And I knocked it off. And I checked that the motors were clear. And then I sold it. Because I didn't want to clean it. I sold it at a great discount to a friend. I'm not joking. This was at an event that Ken Heron invited me to. It was at one of these parks where you can go and you can like shoot airsoft and drive tanks. They have like this troop carriers, obviously decommissioned troop carriers and tanks, and you could drive them around and ride on them. And Ken was like, "Come on out. We're all gonna go. We're gonna chase tanks with our drones." And the problem was, Ken invited everyone in the world. I mean, Ken, of course he did. That's not a problem. But there was no channel management whatsoever. So the minute I took off, I got stomped on, lost video, and crashed in the mud. And then I did it again, and the same thing happened. And I was like, okay, this is a bust. I still had a good time, but I didn't get any footage. And that drone, it was all muddy. And the mud dried off, and I kind of knocked the mud off. And then I was like, ew. And then I sold the drone to somebody. I don't clean my drones. I don't want to. No, I mean, you could, like, mostly the drones are not so dirty that that's an issue. I just, like, if we were to pull any of these drones off the wall, they all have gunk on them, and they fly fine. It doesn't matter. As long as the camera lens is clean, who cares? It just adds character. That's right. But I do think it's funny that my aversion to cleaning drones is so extreme that rather than clean a drone, I sold it. I think it might have fried a motor. And I also... So in addition to not wanting to clean it, I also didn't want to repair it. Anyway. I'm not your guy. Does the ham file still work on the Goggles 3? Yes, it does. Ham unlock will always work. Because if you buy a drone in Europe and take it to the USA, you need to be able to unlock it. Otherwise, it would be bad, right? Ham unlock will always work. I bought the Militato chronograph you showed off a while back, and I love it. Thanks for the recommendation. Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad you like it. I got this one. I just want to throw it out there. I got this as a gift for somebody. And then in the time between when it didn't come in time to give him as a gift. And now I don't know what to do with it. It is a thorn. I forget the actual model. I don't know what to do with it. I tried to sell it, and it's hard to sell a Chinese watch because unless you're in the Chinese watch community, no one knows what this watch is. I think it's a beautiful watch. Kind of looks like a Speedmaster. It's got a chronograph. Here, let me push that in. It's got a chronograph. It's quartz. It's quartz, though. So if you want a mechanical watch, it's not for you. It's got a chronograph. Yeah, it's a nice little watch, but it's not for me. I would sell it, but I don't know how to sell it. Maybe one of you guys will buy it. Nice bracelet. Comes with a strap. I don't know. Oh, there you go. Thorn TO26. Yeah, make me an offer. Wish they went with the VK63. Yeah, Marco, I think they wanted to keep the price down. VK63 has a 24-hour subdial and will always, it's dead to me. So I'm glad they didn't go with the VK63 because it has a proper 12-hour accumulator, even though it's full quartz instead of mecha quartz. So, thanks for answering my concerns last week, JB, says Exiled FPV. Thank you for $2 super chat. It's AJ. What's your word on tabless lithium-ion batteries? They're freaking amazing. Tabless lithium-ion batteries have incredible performance. Some people have said they're going to replace pouch cells. Oh, God. There's other advantages to pouch cells other than the pure current capacity. But yeah, tabless lithium-ion batteries are a major step forward in the ability to use lithium-ion batteries in high discharge locations, high discharge uses. Building a Caillou Mini 2.5-inch on HD0 with an AIO5 and a Lux camera. Should I get the Lava 1104 7200 kV motors or VCI Spark motors? A 2.5-inch? I think I would... Oh, Lava 7200 or 11... So you've got a larger, lower kV motor and a smaller, much higher kV motor. I got to tell you, I don't feel like those are the same motors. You know what I mean? Like, those are so different in kV. Like, if you said I'm building a 5-inch and I don't know whether to go with a 1700 or a 1900 kV motor, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But, like, the difference between 7200 and 11,000 kV, especially on 2S, is pretty extreme. Are you sure that, like... like, let's just look for a drone.
He said he was just looking for black and orange motors.
Okay, I think you should check your specs. Like, what's a comparable drone? Caillou Mini. Oh. Let's look for the exact drone that he's building. So I always... crib other people's work. Learn from other people's experience. This Caillou Mini build uses an 1103 8500 kV. Okay. Who's this guy? He looks like me. This guy looks like me. Oh. Hey, he's a handsome fella. Look at that. Brother from another mother. Let's see. T-Motor 1103 8000 kV. Okay, so everybody else building a Caillou Mini is using an 1103 8000 kV or thereabouts. So I think your 11,000 kV is for like 2-inch props or smaller props. I think that 11,000 kV is too high. Is the rule of thumb, Blunty, 2S 10,000 kV on a 2-inch prop? Am I remembering that right? I know there's a rule of thumb like that. You got anything?
I have no, I'm not, that's not me. But Ciati says 11,000 kV will be too much kV for most 2.5-inch props, but you can just motor limit it down.
Yeah.
Chrome says
Okay.
if you're the person who runs 1,800 kV on a 5-inch 6S, you would want 8,000. If you're the kind of person who runs 2,000 kV, you'd want 11,000. Okay, so kind of maybe just a choice thing.
Yeah, it sounds like 11,000 kV is not untenable. Well, Ciati says it is. It's too much. That 1104 is definitely going to help you out a little bit, although it is going to add weight. But here's the thing. Everybody else I found, all two of them, used 1103 in the 8,000 kV range. So I think probably you should, a lot of times when you're doing a new build, you're like, I'm going to use this motor. Oh, yes, I'm going to use this. And then you end up losing what makes the build so special. The Caillou Mini is popular for a reason. I think you should always start by copying the formula and understanding it and then branch out and potentially screw it up. So I would take the 1103. I would take neither of those motors. But if you had to have one, I would probably take the 1104 7200. I bet it's not that much heavier and it's the correct kV. Whereas the 1103 11,000 kV, you're going to need to kV limit it down. I would definitely compare the weight between them, but I bet the weight is tolerable. But I would actually recommend you give up your color preference and pick a motor that is the correct motor. But if you have to have an orange motor, I probably would take the Lava. Because, like, the correct kV with the slightly bigger motor is just going to be torquier, as long as the weight is acceptable. What's your opinion on the Meteor 65 Pro 04 versus the Air 65 2? Oof, thank you for a €2 super chat. Meteor 65 Pro 04 versus the... Does the Air 65 also come with the 04? I don't think it does. Like, we're comparing apples and oranges here. The air is analog only, isn't it? Right? These are like not even remotely the same thing. People ask me to compare things, and then when I look at them, it's like, what's your opinion of like an apple versus an avocado? And I'm like, well, do you want to eat an apple or do you want to eat a... If you're like, well, what's your opinion of like a peach versus a nectarine? Oh, those are kind of in the same family. Go ahead, Plenty.
Yeah, it's more like an apple versus like a tire. Like, you know, we're really out of the realm of the same thing here. Like, these are two totally different goals, right?
Right. The Air 65 is designed to be as light as possible. Agile, light, fast. The Meteor 65 Pro 04 is, I believe the Pro is even bigger. The Pros usually have larger props. I don't know if that's 100%. What size prop does this use? Like the Meteor 75 Pro, it goes to the GemFan 35 millimeter prop. Is it the same prop or is it a larger prop? 1207. 3B props. GemFan 1207 versus... What is that? I fucking hate... Just pick one. 30 mil. Yeah, so it's 5 millimeter larger props. Call it a 1.7 inch prop or whatever. 1.3 inch. Don't say 35 millimeter and 1207. Like, why? Why do you just want to hurt me? Yeah, this is a bigger drone with DJI O4 on board. It's going to fly good, but it's not going to have the nimbleness or agility. But the thing is, do you have both analog and DJI goggles? Because, like, these are just completely different animals. And if you don't have both analog and DJI goggles, then you can't use one of these, right? So if you're asking about a DJI drone, presumably you have DJI goggles. Just making sure everyone out there is aware that you cannot use the Air 65 with the DJI goggles at all. So like people ask me to compare two things, and it's like, well, you can't have both of those things. But even if you have two sets of goggles, it's like which is better, a Toyota Corolla or a Mazda Miata? One of them's a little light sports car. One of them is like a sedan. They're both good at different things. Which of those things do you want? Anyway, maybe that's just where your head is at. But it's like, we're not going to compare the flight time or the specs. We're going to say this one has an 04 on board. It captures high definition video and it's heavier and it's not as agile. This is analog. It's much more agile and much probably faster, but the video is going to be shittier. That's how you compare them. All right. File that under me being bad at my job. My whole job is to compare products when people ask me about them. And then I was asked to do that, and I was like, this comparison doesn't make sense. And then kind of did a half-assed job of it. Oh. Let's see here. Oh. Huh. Is 8 amps of cruising current with a GoPro and 21700 batteries decent for a 7-inch drone? Not only is it decent, NCFPV, it's so low that I assume your current sensor is miscalibrated. It's extremely unlikely that you're actually pulling 8 amps on a 7-inch drone with a big 21700 battery and a GoPro. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it seems unlikely. Like an airplane could pull 3 or 4 amps cruising. A drone, I just don't see it. So, and I know for a fact that many current sensors come from the factory wildly miscalibrated. So what I think you should do is, here's what you do. You fully charge a battery. You put it on the drone, and you fly the drone, and you look at the milliamp hours in the OSD. Ideally, you fly the battery all the way down to empty, Like, not like 3.0 volts, but you fly it down to like 3.5 volts. Or if it's a 21700, then you fly it down to like 3.0, 3.1 volts. And you look at the number of milliamp hours the OSD shows. Let's say that the OSD says you pulled 5,000 milliamp hours. Then you put the battery back on the charger and you fully charge it, and you look at how many milliamp hours the charger put back in. If the drone said you pulled 5,000 milliamp hours, but the charger says you put in 10,000 milliamp hours, you know that you're off by a factor of 2 or 0.5. And then what you do is you go in and you change your scale value. So here in Betaflight, you would go, I cannot do this because this is not a real flight controller. Hold on. I have to get an actual flight controller out. I was trying to use the virtual flight controller and save time. Boop. Hang on. Connect. Oh, this is iNav. That's fine. Connect. Come on. Come on. What are we doing? No. Oh, because Betaflight's running in the background. Okay, fine. Oh, any minute now. Any minute now, this is going to work. Okay, I got it. Can we have a connection? No. How about this? I don't know why. Put up. Okay, it's not COM23. It's COM27. Can we connect? Oh, we did. Okay, what version is on this flight controller? It's iNav 801. This is configurator 7. God damn it. Oh yeah, because iNav configurators are not cross-compatible. What about this flight controller? Has this got Betaflight on it? This hobby is bullshit. Everything about it is bullshit. Everything is harder than it needs to be because nothing is compatible with anything else. Oh my god, I found the thing I'm looking for. You go in Betaflight to your amperage meter, and here's what you do. Let's say that you pulled 5,000 and the charger said 10,000. So your amps are half of what they should be. You're going to take this scale and you're going to go the opposite direction. So if you want your amp reading to go up, you're going to make the scale smaller. So to double the amps at milliamp hours, we would change it from 400 to 200. And that would bring things into calibration. Okay? If you wanted to make it 4 times as high, you would take it down to 100. And that would quadruple your amps and milliamp hours. This is not a perfect way of doing it because the current sensor is usually not perfectly linear. But basically, if you run a battery down and then you put the battery back on the charger and you fully charge it, obviously it has to be the same charger. That will roughly get you in the ballpark of how to change your current sensor number and get your amp reading in the ballpark of correct. All right. Vejiko Markovic. I have an issue with my flight controller. It won't bind to Express LRS. I've flashed receiver and transmitter and tried the bind phrase, but nothing helps. So like assuming you flash them with the same firmware and assuming that you put the same bind phrase in, there are a couple things you can do. First of all, look at the LED on the receiver. If the LED is going blink, 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 3 blinks, it means that model match needs to be turned off. Go into your Express LRS Lewis script, find model match, turn it off, and then if that doesn't fix it, turn it back on again and off again. Do this with the receiver bound. And that will oftentimes fix that issue. The other thing to do is your packet rate. Depending on what chip is in the transmitter and the receiver, they may not support the same packet rates. So there is a chart out there. Yeah, this is the chart. It's on Radio Master's webpage. Radio Master made this, I believe. And this chart shows the compatible packet rates between different chips. Now, you may not know which of these chips you have. But like, for example, if you're using 2.4 gigahertz, then it's the SX1280 or the 1121. If you're using 900 megahertz, then it's the 1270 or the 1121. So what you're going to want to do is set a compatible packet rate. Okay? If you have a Nomad module and you've set your packet rate to 200 hertz low band, well, then that's not going to work with the 2.4 gigahertz chip in your flight controller. I would recommend 50 hertz, right? Or, I don't think, yeah, 50, okay. Looks like 50 hertz is cross-compatible. Interesting. I would recommend 50 hertz or 50 hertz low, as they are widely cross-compatible. So the wrong packet rate can sometimes cause that. And then the other thing to keep in mind is you sometimes the receiver will be bound, but then your flight controller is set up wrong. And so you're looking at the receiver tab and you don't see any movement in the receiver tab. And you're like, I'm not bound. You are bound. There's a separate binding, just means that the receiver and the transmitter are talking. But then you have to get the signal from the receiver into the flight controller, and that's not binding. But sometimes people use binding as a shorthand for, I don't see no movement in my flight controller. Okay. I have a problem with my Air 65. When I give it 100% throttle, it shakes. I replaced the props. Nothing helped. So presumably that didn't used to happen. I'm going to guess that your frame is damaged. You have a crack in your frame that you don't know about. And that's causing the PID controller to freak out when you go to full throttle. So give a full inspection of your frame. Make sure that there are no cracks. If you've been fixing your frame with super glue, it's time to get a new frame. That's my guess. What's the smallest size analog quad that could handle an action cam, like presumably a GoPro? The first thing to keep in mind is if you're using a GoPro, you're not going to be below 250 grams. So if you care about the 250 gram limit, the best thing you can do is get a 3-inch with a naked GoPro, and you can just squeeze that under 250 grams in my experience. If you are like 250 grams, then you get a 3.5-inch drone, which is just barely under 250 grams. You put an action cam on it. Now it's not under 250 grams, but Ciati points out, going back to the shaking Air 65, that the small motors may have bent shafts. And so, again, changing the props won't fix that. That's a good point. So, yeah, I think but you wanted the smallest analog quad. I wouldn't put, like, you could probably get a naked GoPro on a 2.5-inch and do okay. I wouldn't go much smaller than that. If you're talking about like some of the very, very lightweight action cams, not like a GoPro, you can get down into the 2 inches. I mean, I've seen, what's the freaking little tiny action cam? The eeny meeny one. I'm blanking. The little, the Insta360 Go. So I've seen somebody carry an Insta360 Go on a 75 millimeter. I bet it didn't fly for very long, but it can be done. Yeah. So if you're talking about that as an action cam, you could get down certainly into the 2 inches, maybe a little smaller. But for something like a naked GoPro, where you've decased the GoPro, that'll get you down certainly to 2.5 inches, no problem. Maybe 2 inches. Runcam Thumb, that's a good one. DJI Osmo Nano. Ciotti says Insta360 Go 2 on a 75mm build flies like a Cine lifter. Kyle Watson asks, is there a way to reverse thrust? Like, if I replace the throttle control to one that's centered when I take my thumb off, can I set up my RC controller to have reverse thrust to drop down fast? Yes, you can. What you're talking about is what's called 3D mode. I have an old video where I show how to set up 3D mode. There are other tutorials out there. If there are newer tutorials, like this one from Zoe is probably way better. What is 3D? Zoe FPV is known for her 3D flying. She's an excellent pilot. Excellent 3D pilot and an excellent pilot in general. But basically 3D mode lets you reverse your props and push the opposite direction. So you could check out this video or Zoe's video to show you how to set it up. It's not complicated, and your ESCs already support it. You just have to set your controller and your flight controller up. This is what I...
Can I urge you not to do this? So I just want...
You can? Sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people understand, like, you're adding a lot of complexity to the situation. One of the hardest things for your drone to do is to start a motor that is not moving. It's even harder to move it in the opposite direction. You introduce issues like desyncs, current issues, noise issues. It's also something you have to learn to fly completely separately, so you develop different muscle memory for 3D flying versus normal flying. People talk about how you need special props, special motors, or you're doing sacrificing because you don't have even props, or your props aren't meant correctly, they bend too much. Like, anybody who does like hardcore 3D talks about how like you need special things for 3D to make it work properly, or you're like sort of at a disadvantage versus other drones, especially with like newer ESC firmwares. I would urge you away from doing this just because you think you need downward thrust, and instead learn to fly around the issues you're having. But if you really want to do it, just heed those warnings that I'm telling you.
I mean, if I wanted to go downward faster, I would nose down. I would just pitch forward until I was pointing down and raise my throttle. It's okay to be upside down. Your camera doesn't have to be right side up all the time. Right? But, you know, up to you. 3D is fun.
I find it funny how many people in chat think like I'm triggered or I'm very angry because I talk fast.
Yeah.
I have a lot of information to say, and I speak quickly, and I express myself. Yeah. So don't worry. That's all I would say.
Plenty's. You do get triggered at times. Triggered, quote unquote, triggered. I've seen you get really riled up, but you're not riled up right now, for sure.
Yeah.
You're not one of those like peace and love guys who's like. I once picked up a hitchhiker. I don't know why we picked him up. It was my wife and I were on a drive. We picked up this hitchhiker, and he made an argument against anger, and he was like one of these. It's like, no, I don't think anger is ever productive or helpful. And we had a nice conversation. You pick up a hitchhiker, you're gonna talk philosophy, right? That's what he does to sort of earn. I've noticed with people who are sort of transient, people who like move around a lot, hitchhikers, homeless people. I've noticed that they're often like. Sometimes they're just, you know, not coherent at all. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times they're very good conversationalists. You know, they want to be, they want you to enjoy your time with them, you know, so that you'll, you know, not continue to give them a ride. And so we had this philosophical conversation where he argued that anger was never productive and was always harmful, basically. I'm sure I'm mischaracterizing his argument, but... And I was like, you know, I feel like sometimes anger can be productive. Like you get angry and it motivates you. I don't know. It was an interesting conversation. But my point is, you're definitely not one of those, I never get angry. I never get, riled up. You definitely do that.
I think my major issue is people misread the anger as actual anger and not passion about a subject.
That's fair.
That's the general issue. But I would also say like, I don't know that much about it, but I've like read things about it and watched videos about it and stuff. And like, I'm not saying everyone. I'm not saying there's. Okay, just relax before you take what I'm saying. Okay, just let me say it. Okay. But generally speaking, okay, estrogen solves issues with crying. Testosterone solves issues with anger. It's documented, right? And so one of the things that it helps you do when you have
more testosterone.
Yes, like what I'm saying is like males, generally speaking, are driven to use anger to get out emotion and to process emotion, where women typically use crying or speaking about their emotions. That's just documented over society. It may be societal. I'm not saying it's general.
I see what you're saying.
All whatever, but that is the case. And so one thing you realize when you have anger issues, when you've spoken to therapists about anger issues, like stuff like that, right, is like, or how those can manifest, like in your parents and things, you realize that like it's just a way to express the things you're feeling. Right. In a way you feel can be valid, and you just have to understand like why you're doing it, how you're doing it, what you're like, because it can be helpful and cathartic in some ways to do. It's not always negative, but it can be negative because you're doing it to someone or about someone, or like it's the act of it onto someone else or onto a thing, right?
People are a few other people are misreading what you said in the same way I originally did. When you said testosterone solves issues with anger, what I heard was if you have anger issues, in other words, you have too much anger, then more testosterone will solve that issue. And no, what you were actually saying is if you are sort of on the testosterone side of the spectrum, when you have a problem, you will tend to express that through anger. Whereas if you are more on the estrogen side of that spectrum, when you have a problem, you'll tend to solve it with crying.
Yeah.
And so the more testosterone you have, the sort of more angry you will be. In your problem
nobody
solving.
here's a doctor, but I have talked to a lot of therapists. I've listened to therapists talk about things, like I've read books about things, like generally speaking, this is what I understand.
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah, I certainly experience it myself as like, the anger is a way to process emotions. So just understanding that it is a tool that can be used, can be abused, and can hurt people in the same way that maybe other things can too. I just think it's important in the process. Like it's part of the process. It's not necessarily something negative that can never exist. You know? And in some cases,
anger is a way of anger is one strategy for processing emotions.
Right.
And if you get angry and then you like punch someone in the face or punch a hole in the wall, that's bad. But anger inherently is not bad as a strategy for processing emotions.
Well, often anger is at someone or in a social situation, and that's why it can be bad, right? It's like it's about how to understand why you're doing it and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. There's an interest,
and obviously we're on a tangent here, but whatever. The stream's almost over anyway. I will say, so as men get older, generally testosterone levels go down. I haven't been tested, but I assume that I have less testosterone now than I did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I find it a little bit refreshing. Some of the, I've noticed that I'm a little bit more just level-headed than maybe I was when I was younger. And I can't say directly that that's a result of my hormone changes because I haven't even been tested. But like, there's a part of me that thinks this is actually nice. Oh, and I see these ads and they're like, are you old? Do you wish you had the vigor of youth? Get testosterone treatment. Yeah, you could be a young man again. And I'm like, I don't know if I want that. That was kind of, there were definitely downsides to being a hot-headed young, and I'm like, maybe this is better. But then also, I have a friend who is on testosterone treatment, and he says, like, the stereotype that if you take testosterone, then you become like, you rage out. He's like, yeah, no, if you're like going nuts, if you're going crazy and you're not under the care of a doctor and your hormones are all off, then there can be, roid rage, if you will. But he said, I'm so much more level-headed and less emotional. And like he said, he's actually has less problems with anger once he got regulated. And he's like, you should totally do it. And I'm like, I don't know. Anyway. Now the chat will fill up with people saying I should totally do it. I think I'm manly enough. Like, come on, guys. Do I need any more virility than I already have? Anyway. The problem is, here's the problem. I never knew him before he was on supplemental testosterone. And so I don't know how much of his personality is just how he is as a person and how much of it is the testosterone. So I can't really judge how my personality might change if I did that. I don't know. Hey, Blenty, how's Henry? We haven't heard from Henry in a long time because you're not on camera anymore. And I apologize if like you're like, oh yeah, no, Henry died 2 years ago, and now I've brought it up. I haven't. How's Henry doing? The chat's mentioning him.
Henry's good.
Henry's good. Henry's Blenty's dog, who used to lay on the bed behind you while we live streamed. Yeah, I haven't thought of him in a while. Yeah, cool. I'm glad to hear it. He's getting up there. How old's Henry?
13. 12 and a half, 13.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I miss him.
He's still getting around. He's still getting around pretty good. So.
That's good. That's awesome. He's a good dog.
Oh. All right, we better do these super chats.
Oh, we got super chats, then we got to close out the stream. All right, great. What's the best soldering kit from someone who has never soldered before? I got to say, I just did a review of this Sugon T21, which is an amazing soldering iron and at a very reasonable price. It's about $100, and you could spend a little bit less and get something that's worse. I highly recommend it, even if you're a beginner. Like, that's not that much to spend. If you spend $20 on a soldering iron, you will have thrown your money away. If you spend $50 or $60 on a soldering iron and you buy the right one, you'll get a good soldering iron. And so my argument is that the minimum you should spend on a soldering iron is about $50 or $60, at which point I highly encourage you to just jump to $100 and get the Sugon T21. It's amazing. And you can watch the video if you want to learn why it's amazing. The only reason you would stay away from it is if you needed a portable one, in which case I have another video, best picks for portable soldering kit, which will get you in that $50 to $60 range with a portable one. But don't watch this video, the best soldering iron for FPV. Do I mention the Sugon? I do mention the Sugon. Okay, that's a good one too then. As far as other gear to get, highly recommend you watch this video. Most FPV pilots need to watch the soldering tutorial. It recommends equipment that you can get, solder, flux, and other things, and it's going to get you where you need to be. Thank you for 5 Swiss francs. George Petemeridius recommends tuning for BL32 for Supernova 1980 kV. I don't have any recommended tuning for those motors. There's a lot to it. Generally, the BL defaults should give you good results. You can get better results by tweaking, for example, the timing. Raising the timing will usually give you a little bit more power at the expense of efficiency. But if the defaults don't just fly like good, something else is wrong. Especially on that's a bog standard motor, 2207 1980 kV. Maybe try changing the timing to high. Because 1980 kV is a little high, but like you shouldn't have a weird noise, especially while hovering. So something else is up, and I'm not sure that like changing the ESC settings was what you should fix it. But okay, if you want a recommendation, consider changing timing to high because you have a relatively high kV and RPM. Sometimes that makes a difference. The other thing you can do is try changing the PWM frequency. You can change it from all the way maybe as low as 16 to as high as 48. And like, which is better? Well, higher PWM frequency will give you smoother motors with less torque. Lower frequency will give you more torque with a little bit less smoothness. And the right number is going to be different for different motors and props. And I can't really make a recommendation, but like set your PWM to 16 or 24 at the bottom end of the scale. Set it all the way up to 48. See if one of those is better than the other. But you shouldn't have a weird noise at all. Something else is wrong. And so you just need to be aware of that. Thank you, Ross Kirwan, for $5 Australian. Ross Kirwan says, I want to ask about a beginner soldering guide to wire up your motors. To pins left over when the JT thingies break off. So most... Oh, gosh, wrong scene. Most all-in-one flight controllers with plugs for the motors will also have solder pads. whether those solder pads are underneath the pins or whether they're separate on the flight controller. Without knowing your exact flight controller, I can't say. But I assume the thing is that if your plug broke off, the solder pads designed for those plugs may not be large enough. You would need to know that the manufacturer had put a solder pad underneath the plug with the intent that you were going to break it off. Assuming that the pads are big enough and there's not some other pad somewhere else intended for you to solder to, you would want to just very carefully remove the remaining pins and stuff and just solder to those. I don't have a guide for that other than just a general soldering guide. But that is very, very fiddly soldering, so you would definitely want to practice on something small before you try your flight controller and damage it. I bought the Flywoo Explorer because of your video on the 04 Wide. Didn't use any of your links, so here is 1500 ISK. Thank you so much for the donation. And that is going to do it for us today. Thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow, Monday night, and next weekend as well. I got the live stream scheduled, and who knows? We may stream. We may just keep doing it. We'll see. Probably. I'm joking. Bye, everybody. Bye, Blenty.
Bye.